Your air conditioner stopped blowing cold, and now it's flashing a code at you instead of doing its job. Maybe it reads E4 or EC or E5 or F1. The natural assumption is that some expensive part just gave out, but that code is not pointing at the broken part. It's naming which family your problem falls in, and on most of these units, 4 of the 5 families are usually a cheap, simple fix. The code almost always looks worse than the actual repair. So before you buy a single part, let's decode it properly, because the number on its own lies to you more than it helps. The same code means completely different things on different brands. On a Midea-built unit, and that covers a huge share of the cheap window units and mini splits sold in America, E3 means the indoor fan is spinning at the wrong speed. On a Pioneer, that exact same E3 points at the outdoor temperature sensor instead. Own an LG, and you won't even see an E code because LG runs its own CH codes. So step 1 is boring, but it matters. Find the code legend for your exact brand and model, usually printed inside the outdoor unit's cover, or search your brand plus the code plus your model number. It is genuinely annoying that the machine hands you a code and then makes you go dig up a manual to translate it, but that is where the answer lives. Once you've got the actual word for your code, almost every one of them drops into one of 5 buckets. A temperature sensor, a communication breakdown between the 2 units, a fan or motor, a safety shutdown, or a refrigerant leak. We'll take all 5 in order, from the cheapest and most likely down to the priciest. But first, do the one thing that clears a surprising number of these codes for free. Cut the power all the way off, not just off on the remote. Pull the plug or flip the breaker, wait 10 to 30 minutes, and switch it back on. A lot of these codes are one-time glitches, and a full power cycle wipes them clean. If the code doesn't come back, nothing was ever broken. People replace whole boards over faults that a 1-minute reset would have cleared. While it's powered down, rule out the codes that aren't even failures. On some LG and portable units, E4 isn't an error at all. It just means the unit slipped into a normal defrost cycle and it clears on its own. On a lot of portables, a full tank symbol or a drain-related code only means the condensate tank is full, so empty it. An FL usually means clean your filter, nothing more. And here's the big one that sends people into a panic with no code at all. In heat mode, a mini split won't blow any air until its coil warms up, which can take 5 to 10 minutes on a cold day. The fan might kick on for 15 seconds and stop. That is the unit protecting you from a cold blast while its coil warms up, and it's completely normal. As long as it's still off, check the dumb stuff too. Is the remote set to the right mode and a low enough temperature to kick it on? Is a timer running with the clock set wrong? Is the outdoor unit blocked or still wearing its winter cover? Okay, the code survived the reset. Start with the most common and cheapest cause by a mile, which is a temperature sensor. These are codes like E4, E5, or E6 on a Midea-built unit, E1 through E3 on a Pioneer, or the F1 and F2 sensor codes on some brands. The sensor is a tiny probe, a thermistor, clipped onto the coil or sitting in the airstream. When it drifts out of range or loses its connection, the board can't read a temperature it needs, so it throws a code and stops. Power off, pop the cover, and find that little sensor with 2 thin wires running back to the board. Half the time the fix costs nothing because the connector was just loose or corroded. Unplug it, look for green crud, and reseat it firmly. If you own a multimeter, you can measure its resistance against the table in your manual, and warming the sensor in your hand should make that number drop. If it reads dead or wildly off, the part itself runs about $10 to $30, and that is the whole repair. A code that sounds like a system failure is most of the time a 5-minute reseat or a cheap little probe. Next family up is a communication error. This is your E5 on a lot of window units, or an E1, E6, or E7 depending on the brand, and it means the inside unit and the outside unit have stopped talking to each other. Here is what actually stood out to me because I read the service manuals for these platforms side by side. Half these brands are running the same control boards under different logos, so the codes rhyme even when the names don't, and a communication fault is almost always the wire between the 2 units, not the brains. Power off and check the terminal block at both ends, the little strip where the numbered wires land. You're hunting for a screw backed out, a scorched spot, or a burnt signal wire. Most of those 30-second code videos never get to this next part. A signal wire can look perfect and even test fine on a meter and still be the whole problem. One owner had a communication code 4 years in. The manufacturer names the indoor board as the main cause, so he bought one and swapped it in. The code came back unchanged. His meter showed clean wiring too. On a hunch, he moved the signal wire to a different terminal and it cleared on the spot. The wire had been slowly crushed inside the wall as the house settled. So before you drop a couple $100s on a board, work that wiring hard. There's one more sneaky version on multi-head systems where several indoor units run off one outdoor unit. If one room is set to heat while another is set to cool, some throw a communication code. Nothing is actually broken here. One outdoor unit physically cannot make heat and cold at once, so it faults out. Set every head to the same mode and the code disappears. Third family is the fan itself. Codes like E3 or E7 on the Midea platform or a fan motor code on a Pioneer mean a fan can't reach the speed the board asked for. Power off and spin that fan by hand. If it's stiff, blocked, or dragging, there's your answer. If it spins free, the usual suspect is the run capacitor, a little cylinder that gives the motor its kick. A capacitor is cheap, $10 to $30, but one real warning on this one. A capacitor holds a charge even after the power is off, enough to bite you hard, so if you're not comfortable discharging it safely, this is the point where you hand it to a tech. The motor itself is the pricier ending, but rule out the no-cost stuff first. The fourth family is a safety shutdown, and this one fools people the most. Codes like F0 or F1 for pressure and E8 for the compressor overheating or a P code all mean the unit shut itself down on purpose to protect the expensive part inside it. The code names the guard that tripped, not the thing that actually caused it. And the cause is usually cheap and boring. It comes down to airflow. A filthy filter or a clogged coil chokes the air so the unit overheats or the pressure spikes and it trips. Clean the filter, clean both coils, and clear anything crowding the outdoor unit. There's a genuine trap hiding here too. On mini splits, techs see this exact fault right after someone swaps the thin factory filter for a thick high filtration one. The denser filter starves the unit for air and trips the same protection code. So on these, more filter is not better. The other cause is weak or unstable voltage, which is why some units really want their own dedicated circuit. Which brings us to the fifth family, and the scariest looking code of them all, EC, refrigerant leak detected. Some newer units even carry a real leak sensor built in, so when EC shows up, the fear is a giant bill. But here is my honest take, and the comment sections under these videos back it up. If your unit is still blowing cold air, treat an EC leak code as a liar until it's proven otherwise. Real people who dug into their EC codes kept finding a bad sensor, a dirty filter dropping the pressure, or a burnt start capacitor, and no leak at all. So reset it, clean the filter, and reseat those sensors before you assume the worst. But if it truly is low on refrigerant, I have to be straight with you. That is not a do-it-yourself job. Finding the leak, sealing it, then pulling a vacuum and weighing in a fresh charge takes gauges, a scale, and an EPA certification to even buy the refrigerant legally. And adding refrigerant without fixing the leak is just burning money because it leaks right back out again. A leak find and recharge on a mini split runs somewhere around $150 to $600 in 2026, and a bad coil can push well past $1,000. That dollar figure is where you stop and do the other kind of math. If it's a window unit or a cheap portable and the code points at a board, a compressor, or a real leak, walk away from the repair. A new window unit is $150 to $300, and a board or a recharge can cost the same or more on a machine that might just fail again next summer. Do not let anyone throw part after part at a $200 unit. A mini split is a different story because the install ran a few thousand, so that one is worth fixing right. And the cheap sensor, wiring, and filter fixes are worth doing on anything with a plug. And one thing nobody selling you parts will admit, a specific error code is actually a gift. When a unit just dies with no code at all, even good techs end up guessing and swapping parts one by one. Yours pointed you somewhere, so read it right instead of fearing it. So the next time that code pops up, don't head straight for the parts counter, kill the power and let the thing reset. Rule out the fakes first, the defrost, the full tank, the dirty filter. Then decode your exact brand, sort the code into one of the 5 families, and start from the cheapest fixes and climb. A sensor or a loose wire won't cost you more than a takeout dinner. And even the pro-level stuff, you'll now walk into it knowing whether you're facing a small fix or a real decision. I've put the parts worth keeping around in the description: a multimeter, a spare thermistor, a run capacitor, and the correct filter for your unit. More often than not, the thing hiding behind that alarming code is the cheapest little component in the whole box.